The scent of lemon cleaner and old textbooks always clung to Ben, a quiet man in his early 30s. He wore it like a second skin, a uniform of his trade. Every morning, before the first bell rang, Ben was already at Northwood Elementary, his mop bucket a familiar clatter against the polished linoleum floors. He moved with a practiced ease, his hands rough from years of scrubbing, his eyes often scanning the empty hallways, imagining the rush of children soon to fill them. Ben wasn't just a janitor, he was a dad. And his daughter, Lily, was the brightest star in his sky. Lily, a spunky 6-year-old with a gap-toothed smile, often joined him after school. She'd sit on a stack of neatly folded gym mats, drawing pictures with colorful crayons while Ben finished his rounds. Sometimes she'd help him, pushing a small broom around, her tiny hands mimicking his big ones. He loved these quiet moments with Lily, away from the bustling classrooms and the sometimes harsh whispers of parents. He knew what some of them thought of him, just the janitor. He'd overheard snippets of conversation in the hallway, seen the quick, dismissive glances. It stung, of course, but he tried not to let it show. For Lily, he was strong. For Lily, he was everything. He found dignity in his work, even if others didn't. He cleaned up messes, yes, but he also made sure the school was a safe, welcoming place for every child, including his own. Ben's days were a rhythm of scrubbing, sweeping, and fixing. He knew every loose tile, every flickering light bulb, every squeaky door hinge in Northwood Elementary. He saw the children arrive each morning, their backpacks bouncing, their laughter echoing. He saw the teachers hurry to their classrooms, their arms full of papers. And he saw the parents, some rushing by with a quick, polite nod, others not even seeing him at all. He often felt like a ghost, a part of the building's machinery rather than a person. He remembered the time Mrs. Henderson, a parent on the school board, had bumped into his mop bucket, spilling soapy water. She'd huffed, "Watch where you're going, Ben. Some of us have important places to be." Her tone was sharp, her eyes barely meeting his. Ben had simply apologized and cleaned up the mess, his face warm with embarrassment. Then there was Mr. Davies, the vice principal, who once asked Ben to move a stack of boxes, saying, "You're good at this kind of thing, aren't you, Ben?" The heavy lifting. It wasn't mean, but it wasn't kind either. It felt like he was just a tool, not a person with thoughts or feelings. Ben just nodded, picked up the boxes, and carried them where they needed to go. He knew his place, or, at least, that's what they seemed to tell him without saying a word. Yet, as he watched the children play, their innocent joy was a quiet reward, reminding him why he did what he did. Among the many faces Ben saw each day, one stood out, not just because she was new, but because of a comment she'd made. Her name was Sarah, and she was a fourth-grade teacher, bright and kind to her students, with a warm smile that reached her eyes. She was around Ben's age, with pretty brown hair that always seemed to fall perfectly. He'd seen her laughing with other teachers in the staff room, a place he only entered to empty the trash. One afternoon, about a year ago, Ben was cleaning up a spill in the hallway after school. Sarah walked by, holding a stack of colorful art projects. She paused, looking at the sticky mess. "Oh, Ben," she'd said, a little sigh in her voice. "Always cleaning up after everyone, aren't you? It must be. Well, quite the career." She hadn't meant it to be mean, not exactly, but the words hung in the air, a little too dismissive, a little too pitying. It felt like she was saying, "You're just the janitor, and that's all you'll ever be." Ben had simply nodded, a small yep escaping his lips, and continued scrubbing, his cheeks feeling hot. He watched her walk away, her bright laugh echoing as she joined another teacher. Her comment, though perhaps not intended to hurt, had stayed with him, a tiny, sharp pebble in his shoe. He knew she was a good teacher, loved by her students, but that one moment had etched itself into his memory, a reminder of how some people saw him. He still held the door open for her, still gave a small nod, but a quiet wall had gone up between them in his mind. A notice went up on the bulletin board in the staff lounge, a fancy flyer about an important school meeting. It was titled "Building Our Northwood Family," a community values discussion. Ben saw it as he emptied the trash can, a faint hum of excitement already in the air among the teachers. Parents, teachers, and school leaders were all invited to talk about how to make the school an even better place. Ben's role in this big event was, as always, behind the scenes. He spent the afternoon setting up the school gym where the meeting would be held. He unfolded dozens of chairs, arranging them in neat rows, making sure there was enough space for everyone. He wiped down the long tables where refreshments would be placed, making them shine. He even adjusted the microphone on the small stage, tapping it gently to make sure it worked. He could hear snippets of conversation from the office as he worked, the principal, Mrs. Davis, talking about the importance of everyone's voice. Ben chuckled to himself. Everyone's voice, except maybe the quiet man mopping the floor. He knew his job was important for the meeting to run smoothly, but he wasn't really a part of the Northwood family they'd be talking about. He was just the one who made sure the floor was clean and the chairs were straight. Still, he took pride in his work, ensuring everything was just right. He even made sure the projector screen was perfectly centered, a task no one had asked him to do, but he knew it would make a difference. The gym slowly filled with people. Parents chatted, teachers greeted each other, and the hum of conversation grew louder. Ben, having finished his setup duties, was about to slip out the side door, planning to check on Lily in the cafeteria, where she was having a snack. He always liked to be out of the way during these big meetings. Just as his hand touched the door handle, Mrs. Davis, the principal, cleared her throat at the microphone. "Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming. Before we begin our discussion, I wanted to invite someone special to say a few words. Someone who sees this school from a unique perspective, someone who touches every corner of our building with care. Ben, would you mind coming up?" Ben froze. He turned slowly, his eyes wide. Did she just say his name? He looked around the room, and dozens of eyes were now on him. Faces showed surprise, confusion, even a touch of amusement from some of the parents. He saw Sarah, the teacher, in the third row, her pretty brown hair catching the light. Her eyes were wide too, a mix of curiosity and shock. His heart hammered against his ribs. Speak? Him? He, Ben, the janitor? He hadn't prepared anything. He never prepared anything for speaking in front of people because he never spoke in front of people. He always stayed in the background. But Mrs. Davis was smiling kindly, holding out the microphone. There was no polite way to say no. Taking a deep breath, Ben slowly walked toward the stage, feeling every single "I follow him." Ben stood on the stage, the microphone cool against his hand. His knees felt a little shaky, and his voice, when it came out, was softer than he intended. "Hello, everyone," he began, looking out at the sea of faces, many still showing surprise. He saw Sarah, her eyes still fixed on him, a hint of something he couldn't quite name in their depths. He cleared his throat, pushing down his fear. "Mrs. Davis asked me to say a few words," he continued, a bit stronger now. I don't usually do this, but I spent a lot of time in this school, seeing a lot of things." He paused, gathering his thoughts, remembering the most important person in his life. My late wife, Lily's mom. She always believed in kindness. She used to say it was the strongest thing a person could have. A quiet fell over the room, the low hum of conversation fading. People leaned forward, listening. "She taught me that everyone deserves respect," Ben said, his voice gaining a steady rhythm. "No matter their job, no matter how big or small their part seems. She always told me that a kind word, a simple smile, could change someone's whole day." He looked down at his hands, rough from his work, then back up at the faces in the crowd. She believed that treating others with respect wasn't just a nice thing to do, but it was the only way to build a real community. His words, simple and true, hung in the air, pulling everyone's attention. Ben continued, his voice now clear and steady, filled with a quiet strength. "My wife, she wasn't just kind. She saw the good in everyone, even when it was hard to find. And after she passed, it was tough, really tough." He paused, a flicker of pain crossing his face, but it quickly softened into a gentle smile as he thought of Lily. "But then there's Lily, our daughter. She's got her mom's eyes, and her mom's way of looking at the world." He gestured vaguely toward the back of the gym, where Lily was likely still with her coloring book, unaware of her dad on stage. Lily reminds me every day to try and see that good, even when people don't see it in me, even when they might look past me or talk over me or think my job isn't as important as theirs. His gaze swept across the faces, lingering for a moment on Sarah, whose expression had softened, her eyes now holding a thoughtful, almost sad look. It's easy to get caught up in how we're seen, Ben went on, his words simple yet profound. But what truly matters is how we choose to see others, how we choose to treat each other. For Lily, for all the kids in the school, I try my best to be kind, to be respectful, to make this place clean and safe. Because that's what my wife would have done. That's what she taught me is truly important. A hush had fallen over the room, every ear now tuned to his earnest words. This school, Ben continued, his voice now a steady murmur that filled the silent gym. It's more than just bricks and desks. It's where our kids learn, where they grow. And it takes everyone to make it work, to make it special. He looked from the teachers to the parents, then to the principal. It's not just the principal making big plans or the teachers teaching lessons. It's also the folks in the cafeteria making sure lunch is warm and the bus drivers getting everyone here safely. He paused, a small, humble smile playing on his lips. And yes, he added, a hint of his usual quiet humor in his voice. It's even the person who mops up the spills and makes sure the trash cans are empty. Every single job, every single person plays a part. A small part, maybe in the big picture, but an important part just the same. He glanced at Sarah again, and her gaze met his, no longer surprised, but attentive and thoughtful. When we all remember that, Ben said, his voice ringing with a simple truth, that everyone here is trying their best, and everyone deserves a little kindness and respect, then this school really becomes a family. A place where everyone feels they belong, and everyone feels important. His words were plain, without fancy language, yet they held a power that seemed to settle over the audience, making them truly listen. As Ben's simple, heartfelt words echoed through the gym, a profound silence fell. It wasn't just a quiet, it was a stillness that seemed to absorb every sound, every rustle of clothing, every nervous cough. The air in the room felt different, heavy with thought and a shared understanding. Faces that had been surprised or amused now held serious, reflective looks. Many eyes were wide, some even a little moist. Sarah, in the third row, felt a prickle behind her own eyes. Ben's words about seeing the good in everyone, even when others didn't see it in him, hit her hard. She remembered her own thoughtless comment, quite the career, and felt a deep blush creep up her neck. She had been so quick to judge, to dismiss, to see only his job and not the person, the father, the man standing before them with such quiet strength. She looked at Ben, truly looked at him, and saw not just a janitor, but a man of deep feeling and wisdom. His words had been a gentle mirror, showing her a part of herself she didn't like. A knot formed in her stomach as regret washed over her. She saw the lines of worry around his eyes, the tired but kind set of his mouth, and a new understanding dawned. He wasn't just a cleaner. He was the keeper of the school's heart, a silent observer who truly understood what it meant to build a community. The entire room, caught in the spell of his honesty, remained perfectly still, listening. Ben finished his speech with a simple nod, stepping back from the microphone. He hadn't rehearsed a grand ending, just spoken from his heart. For a long moment, the silence in the gym held firm, heavier and more meaningful than any noise. It was a silence born of deep thought, of people looking inward, a quiet ripple of emotion, like a stone dropped into a calm pond, spread through the room. He saw the principal, Mrs. Davis, her eyes shining with warmth and pride. He saw parents nodding slowly, some wiping away a stray tear. And he saw Sarah, her gaze still fixed on him, a profound sadness mixed with respect in her beautiful eyes. The dismissive edge she once held was gone, replaced by something much softer, much more human. Then a single clap broke the stillness. It came from the back, a lone parent, then another and another. Soon, the entire room erupted in applause. It wasn't polite applause. It was a genuine, heartfelt roar of hands meeting hands, full of appreciation and a shared understanding. Ben felt a warmth spread through his chest, a feeling he hadn't known in a long time. He wasn't invisible anymore. For this moment, his words had made him seen, truly seen by everyone in the room. He gave a small, shy smile, a silent thank you to the faces now looking at him with new respect. After the meeting ended, the gym slowly emptied. People lingered, some still talking about Ben's words, others moving towards the refreshments. Ben was gathering a few stray papers, feeling a quiet contentment he hadn't expected. He was almost at the door when a soft voice called his name. Ben! He turned to see Sarah standing there, a thoughtful look on her face. Her pretty brown hair was a little mussed, and her eyes, usually so bright, held a hint of shyness. She walked closer, stopping a few feet away. I just wanted to say, she began, her voice soft, what you said tonight. It was really beautiful and important. Ben just nodded, not sure what to say. He remembered her dismissive comment, the one that had stung him, and wondered if she remembered it too. I also wanted to apologize, Sarah continued, her gaze meeting his directly. A while ago, I said something about your job. Something silly and thoughtless. I didn't mean to be unkind, but I realize now that it was. I didn't see you, Ben. Not truly, and I'm really sorry. Her apology was sincere, her eyes earnest. A small, surprised smile touched Ben's lips. He saw the genuine regret in her face, the shift in her heart. It's okay, Sarah, he said quietly, his voice gentle. We all learn, don't we? She smiled back, a real, warm smile this time, a fresh start. Yes, Ben, she said, we certainly do. Lily was waiting for Ben by the school entrance, her coloring book clutched in her hands. She looked up, her eyes bright. Daddy, you were on the stage, she exclaimed, her voice full of wonder. She hadn't understood all the words, but she'd seen him up there, and that was enough. Ben knelt down, giving her a big hug. That's right, sweet pea, he said, ruffling her hair. He took her small hand in his, and they began their walk home. The evening air was cool and fresh, a gentle breeze rustling the leaves on the trees. Ben felt a lightness in his step, a quiet sense of peace he hadn't felt in years. The words he had spoken still echoed in his mind, not with the nervousness he'd felt on stage, but with a deep satisfaction. He had shared his heart, his wife's wisdom, and Lily's light with everyone. And they had listened. They had truly listened. The dismissive glances, the overlooked presence, the sharp comments. For tonight, they didn't matter. His voice, usually so quiet, had been heard. A quiet dignity settled over him, a warmth spreading from his chest. He was still the janitor, Ben, who cleaned the floors and emptied the trash. But he was also a dad, a man who carried a deep well of kindness, inspired by love. And tonight, he had reminded everyone that kindness, respect, and seeing the good in each other were what truly made a place special. He looked down at Lily, skipping happily beside him, and squeezed her hand. She was his reason, his joy, and the living proof of everything he believed in.